When you have a brand like Fender, everything you do is a statement against the legacy, but also a statement of purpose in terms of where you want to take the legacy. Leo started Fender just post-war. He was a radio technician during the war, and he started in Fullerton with the post-war boom that basically grew Southern California into what it is today. Fender was born where I grew up, in Fullerton, California, down the street from where I lived. And California's new. And so I think that a lot of the thing missed about California in terms of the legacy of this state is it's relatively new in terms of an economy, in terms of a state, in terms of a population. And as you know, the great westward expansion that happened in the 1800s, everybody just kind of ended here and then set up camp. And so Los Angeles is this great melting pot. It's a melting pot of cultures, it's a melting pot of ethnicities, it's a melting pot of socioeconomic status, of industries. It was the place that aviation was born. It's the place that musical instruments were born. It's the place where a lot of music was born. And so the combination of kind of this idyllic place to live with so much changes happening so quickly, so much modernization, made it so that there wasn't as much of a fear of trying new things in terms of music. So all those things coming together, yeah, you can't help but have creativity emerge from it. I think Leo really tapped into listening to the people making music at that period.
Leo Fender was not a guitar player himself, but he was one of the world's great listeners. He listened intently to the feedback that he got from the artists that he worked with, and the Stratocaster was an evolution from the Telecaster that he originally started with. And usually when you have a form following function in design, that's when you have a chance of creating iconography, because the design language endures because it comes off a functional base. I like to say the Stratocaster hasn't changed other than the way it sounds, the way it feels, the electronics, the shape of the neck, the height of the frets, the way that the tuners work. We've changed every single aspect of it and continue to do. Every platform we evolve on 4-year cycles. Leo ran the company for many years, sold the company to CBS. CBS at that time were on a diversification binge. Not a lot of those acquisitions worked out to the benefit of the brand. The product didn't move forward. If anything, it moved back on average. But it's been private since the 80s.
Andy and I came in at the same time. What we had to do was basically look at our audience, look at what we knew about our audience, and figure out ways to grow the audience, grow engagement into the products, while staying true to what the brand stands for. So it's not digital paint that you can just slap on top of a legacy brand and hope for the best. Brands have tried to do that. They usually fail at doing that. So if you're going to take a brand like Fender, 75 years old, super legacy brand, more important in the music business sometimes than the music itself. If you're going to take a brand like that and go digital, it has to be for the right reasons. It can't just be because it's the fashionable thing to do. More companies have gone out of business going digital than have stayed in business and made it work.
I've been lucky in my career to be associated with Nike, Disney, and now Fender. And in each case, people have an emotional connection, either through sport or through family, or in the case of Fender, through music. And in Fender's case, it's personal for me because I've been a guitar player for 50 years before I joined the company. I think you have to have respect for the past, but you also need to push forward with new ideas. If you take a brand like Porsche, people love their original bathtub 356 Porsche, but the current 911 is a much better car. After my 20 years at Nike and I joined Disney, one of the first people I met was Steve Jobs. He grilled me about, what makes a good brand. great brands are the cumulative effect of great products. Every single product that you make is either a withdrawal or a deposit in the bank of brand equity.
I believe that the best product comes from editing. Every year, my product team and I, we go through this exercise where we write a stack of index cards. It's basically every idea we've ever had. And we basically throw them all on the floor. And we go through each one and we talk about it. And we go through okay, what will it cost to make? What will it take to do this? What's the potential on this product? Everything's cutting room floor. And it has to go through a very deliberative process to get put on the table. And then every year we put a couple things on the table and then we do them. But there's more ideas than time, and there's way more ideas than people to do the ideas.
It helps if the product invokes an emotional connection. The history behind that particular bass was it was given to him by a fan on tour in Australia one time. And sometimes, you pick it because it's such a personal thing, how it feels, how it resonates with you, how the sound that you hear is the right sound for the music that you want to make, that sometimes it just clicks. And a lot of the very well-known players of the brand, they take it to a certain point and they go, this is it. I don't want to move it any further. This is exactly what I need to generate the music out that I want, and they're perfectly happy with that. But there's also, musicians that like to tinker with everything. I mean, Eddie Van Halen was a perfect example of that, where nothing was stock. Every single aspect of the guitar he experimented with and invented, entire component parts or ways to play in the process of his experimentation. It's funny, I have a 13-year-old daughter who's a big Billie Eilish fan, so when I told her we were going to do a signature ukulele, she recited chapter and verse how ukulele had been instrumental in her songwriting development. So I think, hardcore fans of Billie, and there are many millions, kind of really understand their kind of relationship with that.
We're a brand with a huge weight of legacy, probably more than most consumer product brands, maybe except Coke. And when you have the logo that stands for so much and it's been on so many stages, it's hard to get comfortable enough to stretch out of that box that the brand has kind of put us in. Some companies step out of the box and see what happens and see what works. But the better way is you start pushing the box outward. What happens if you tell people they can't go anywhere? And what happens if you tell people that they can't socialize? Turns out what happens is they want to be creative. And so that's the context that informs what do we need to do in the product to affect that. So when lockdown started, we saw the opportunity to give Fender Play away for free. People were going to be stuck at home. We figured there was no better way for people to get through that than to learn how to play guitar. So we were going to do 100,000 accounts. We blew through that in a day. And then we went to 500,000 and it took 3 days. And we eventually had 960,000 people within Fender Play learning how to use the product. And that gave us a whole new insight into our audience.
45% of all guitars we sell every year go to a first-time player. 50% of those first-time players were women. 90% of first-time players abandon the instrument in the first year, if not the first 90 days. But the 10% who don't develop a lifelong connection to it.
It was the biggest amount of people we ever had using the product, and we use that to really shape how we've evolved the product since then. The mantra we have as a product team is make better mistakes tomorrow. And that really goes back to Leo's product development process. It's trying things and listening to artists and trying new things and stretching into new directions. Not everything works, but when it does, you keep going.
The vision statement of our company actually came out of Leo's mouth late in his life in one of his more philosophical moments. He told his wife that he felt that all artists were angels and his job was to give them wings to fly.
Fender's a weird, very interesting brand. We're at the tail end of 75 years. I don't know where the next 75 goes. I'm focused on the next tomorrow and the tomorrow and the tomorrow and the next quarter. But I know that the decisions we make today are going to affect how the brand is seen 75 years from now. And I would hope that when the book is written about Fender, that the chapter that we're in, that we're representing at this moment, is represented well. We took the legacy of this company and we kept pushing it forward and forward.
Well, for me, the most interesting era is going to be the next one. This is a legacy brand. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be developed. And my ambition is to leave it in better shape than you found it.